For 15 years, Min lived a life that many people would call simple, even boring. He woke up early every morning, took the same crowded bus to work, and returned home at the same quiet hour each evening. He didn't eat at expensive restaurants. He didn't travel. He didn't buy new clothes unless the old ones were completely worn out. People around him often wondered why. Some of his coworkers joked that he was too careful. Others said he didn't know how to enjoy life. But Min never explained. He just smiled and kept going. Every month, on the same day his salary arrived, Min would sit down at his small wooden table. He would open his notebook, carefully write down every expense, and then transfer a large portion of his money into a savings account. It didn't matter if it was a good month or a difficult one, he always saved. At first, the number in his account grew very slowly. Sometimes it felt like nothing was changing at all. A year passed, then another, then 5. Still, Min continued, because in his mind, there was always a quiet dream. A small house. Not a big one, not a beautiful one. Just something enough, something safe. A place where he wouldn't have to worry about rent increasing every year. A place where he could finally rest after long days of work. That dream was the reason he said no to so many things. No to weekend trips, no to new phones, no to small luxuries that others didn't think twice about. Over time, people stopped asking him to join them. Min will say no anyway, they said, and they were right. But what they didn't see was the quiet strength behind his choices. Late at night, when the city had already fallen asleep, Min would sometimes sit alone and look at the numbers in his account. They weren't just numbers. They were years of patience, years of sacrifice, years of believing that one day his life would become a little more stable, a little more certain. 15 years later, that day was finally close. Min had saved enough. Not for a big house, but for a small apartment on the edge of the city. He had already visited it twice. The walls were plain, the rooms were small, but when he stood inside, he felt something he had never felt before. It felt like it could be his. For the first time in many years, Min allowed himself to imagine a different future. A quiet evening in his own home. A simple meal in a space that belonged to him. No more moving from place to place. No more uncertainty. He even allowed himself a small smile on the way home that day. But life doesn't always move in the direction we expect. That same night, as Min was preparing to sleep, his phone rang. It was a call he almost didn't answer. A number he hadn't seen in a long time. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, slowly, he picked up. And in the next few seconds, everything he had built over 15 years began to change. Min didn't recognize the number at first. It had been years since anyone from that part of his life had called him. For a brief moment, he considered letting it ring, just like he had done with so many unknown calls before. But something felt different this time. So he answered, "Hello." There was silence on the other end. Then, a voice he hadn't heard in a very long time. "Min, is that you?" His hand tightened slightly around the phone. It was his older sister. They hadn't spoken properly in almost 8 years. Life had slowly pulled them in different directions. After their parents passed away, each of them struggled in their own way. Words became shorter, calls became fewer, and eventually, they stopped calling at all. Not because they didn't care, but because sometimes distance grows quietly, without anyone noticing. "Yeah, it's me," Min said softly. There was another pause. This time, heavier. "I'm sorry to call so late," she said, her voice unsteady. "I didn't know who else to call." Min sat down slowly on the edge of his bed. Something wasn't right. He could feel it. "What happened?" he asked. On the other end of the line, he heard her trying to breathe, trying to stay calm. It's my son," she said. "He's in the hospital." The room suddenly felt smaller. Min didn't speak. "He collapsed this afternoon," she continued. "The doctor said, his heart, there's a problem. They need to do surgery soon." Each word came out like it was too heavy to carry. Min stared at the floor, his thoughts beginning to race. Is he okay now?" he asked. "They're keeping him stable," she said. "But they said we can't wait too long." Then came the part she didn't want to say, the part that hung quietly between them. "It's very expensive, Min." He closed his eyes. Of course it was. Hospitals always were. I've tried everything, she continued quickly. I borrowed from friends, from neighbors. I even tried to sell what I could, but it's not enough. Her voice broke. I didn't want to call you. I know we haven't talked in so long. I know you have your own life now. Min said nothing, but his chest felt tight. I didn't know who else could help, she whispered. In that moment, the small apartment, the quiet dream he had held onto for 15 years, suddenly felt very far away. Min looked across the room at his old wooden table. The notebook was still there, the careful records, the years of discipline, and behind all of that, the savings, the one thing he had protected for so long. Min, his sister's voice came again, softer now. If it's too much, I understand. He opened his eyes. His mind was filled with numbers. Years of work, years of saying no, years of waiting, all leading to this one moment that he had planned so carefully. But life hadn't asked for his plan. It had asked for something else. Min took a slow breath, then another, and in that quiet room, with nothing but the sound of his own heartbeat, he began to realize that the hardest decision of his life was not in the past 15 years. It was right here, right now. Min didn't answer right away. On the other end of the phone, his sister waited, silently, as if she already knew how difficult this moment was. In his small room, everything felt still. Too still. Min placed the phone gently on the table, but he didn't hang up. He could still hear her breathing, soft and uncertain, like she was afraid the line might suddenly go quiet. He stood up and walked slowly toward the window. Outside, the city was alive as always. Motorbikes passing, distant voices, lights flickering from buildings that never seemed to sleep. Life was moving forward, just like it had every day for the past 15 years. But inside that room, time felt frozen. Min's eyes drifted back to the table, the notebook, the numbers, the proof of everything he had worked for. He walked back, sat down, and opened it. Page after page, every expense carefully written, every sacrifice recorded in quiet ink. He saw the months when he skipped meals to save a little more, the years when he wore the same shoes until the soles were nearly gone, the times he said no to friends again and again until they stopped asking. All of it was there, not just money, but pieces of his life. Min ran his fingers slowly across the pages, as if he could feel those years again. Then his gaze moved to his phone. The call was still connected. Min. His sister's voice came softly. Are you still there? He picked up the phone, but he still didn't speak. Instead, he asked a question. When is the surgery? As soon as possible, she replied quickly. The doctor said, maybe in a few days. We can't wait too long. A few days. That was all the time life was giving him. Min leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine something simple. What if he said no? What if he told her he couldn't help? He would still have his savings. He could buy the apartment. He could finally live the life he had planned for so long. A stable life. A safe life. The life he had earned. But then, another image appeared. A hospital room. A child lying quietly. His sister, alone, sitting beside the bed, waiting, hoping, with no one to turn to. Min opened his eyes quickly. His chest felt heavier now. He had spent 15 years preparing for a future, but he had never prepared for this. Min, I'm really sorry, his sister said again, her voice breaking. I know I'm asking for too much. He looked around his room one more time. It was small, old, uncertain, but it had been enough for 15 years, and suddenly, it didn't feel as important as it once did. Min tightened his grip on the phone. His voice, when it finally came, was quiet, but steady. How much do you still need? There was silence. Then a soft, shocked breath on the other end. It's a lot, she said carefully, as if she was afraid to say the number out loud. That's okay, Min replied. He didn't ask for details. He didn't open his notebook again, because deep down, he already knew. This decision was no longer about numbers. It was about something far more difficult to measure. And once that realization settled in his heart, there was no turning back. Min didn't sleep that night. After the call ended, he sat in silence for a long time, the phone still resting in his hand. The room felt different now, as if something invisible had already shifted. The dream he had carried for 15 years was still there, but it no longer stood alone. Beside it was something heavier, something urgent. When the first light of morning appeared through the window, Min stood up quietly. He washed his face, put on his usual shirt, and prepared to leave, just like any other day. But this day was not the same. Instead of heading to work, he walked to the bank. The streets were already busy. People rushed past him, focused on their own lives, their own plans. No one knew that Min was carrying a decision that had taken him 15 years to build, and only one night to change. Inside the bank, everything felt strangely calm. The air conditioning was cool. The lights were bright. The employees spoke in polite, practiced voices. Min took a number and sat down. In front of him, a young couple was discussing a loan. They were smiling, pointing at documents, talking about their future home. Min watched them quietly. For a brief moment, something inside him tightened. That could have been him. That should have been him. When his number was called, he stood up and walked to the counter. The employee greeted him with a professional smile. "How can I help you today, sir?" Min placed his ID on the table. "I'd like to withdraw my savings." The employee nodded and began typing on the computer. "Do you want to withdraw a specific amount?" Min paused. This was the moment, the line between the life he had planned and the choice he was about to make. "All of it," he said. The employee looked up, slightly surprised. "All of it?" she repeated. Min nodded. "Yes." There were a few more questions, a few forms to sign, a few confirmations. Each step felt small, almost routine. But for Min, every signature carried weight. 15 years, reduced to a few lines of ink. When the process was finished, the employee handed him the confirmation papers. "Your transaction is complete," she said. Min looked down at the paper. The number was still there, but it no longer belonged to his future. It now belonged to a decision he could never undo. He folded the paper carefully and placed it in his bag. Then he stepped outside. The sun was higher now. The city was louder. Life continued, unchanged. But Min felt something unfamiliar in his chest. It wasn't regret? Not exactly. It was something quieter, something deeper, a mix of loss and clarity. He took out his phone and made a call. "Min?" His sister answered almost immediately, her voice filled with worry. "I'm coming," he said simply. "I'll bring the money." There was silence. Then, on the other end, he heard her begin to cry. Not loudly, but in a way that carried years of distance, and something slowly breaking through it. Min ended the call and stood still for a moment. 15 years of saving, gone in a single morning. The apartment, the dream, the stable future he had imagined so many times. All of it had changed. But as he began to walk forward, one step at a time, Min realized something he had never understood before. Sometimes the value of what we save is only revealed in the moment we choose to let it go. The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and quiet worry. Min arrived just before noon, a small bag in his hand and years of distance still lingering somewhere in his chest. He hesitated for a moment outside the room. The last time he had seen his sister, life was very different. They were younger, closer. The world had not yet placed so much weight on their shoulders. Now everything felt unfamiliar. But he knocked gently and stepped inside. His sister was sitting beside the bed, her eyes tired, her hands wrapped tightly together. When she looked up and saw him, she froze. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then she stood up quickly. "Min?" Her voice broke before she could say anything more. Min gave a small nod. "I came as soon as I could." There was no dramatic moment, no long speech, just a quiet understanding passing between them. He placed the bag on the table. "The money is inside," he said. His sister stared at it, as if she couldn't believe it was real. "All of it?" she whispered. Min didn't answer directly. He simply said, "It's enough." Tears filled her eyes almost instantly. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Min replied gently. For a moment, the room was filled with nothing but soft breathing and unspoken emotions. Then Min turned his attention to the bed. A small boy lay there, pale but peaceful, machines quietly monitoring each heartbeat. Min stepped closer. "This is him?" he asked. His sister nodded. Yes, he's been asking about you. I used to tell him stories about his uncle. Min felt something shift inside him. He had missed so many years, so many small moments that would never come back. But somehow, he was here now. And maybe that still meant something. The surgery happened 2 days later. Min stayed at the hospital the entire time. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Sometimes just being there was enough. Hours passed slowly. Each minute felt longer than it should. Until finally, the doctor came out. The surgery was successful, he said. And just like that, the weight in the room lifted. His sister covered her face and cried. This time, not from fear, but from relief. Min let out a quiet breath he didn't realize he had been holding. Everything had changed. And yet, in that moment, something felt right. Weeks later, Min returned to his small rented room. Nothing had changed there. The same table, the same window, the same quiet space. But he was not the same person anymore. The savings were gone. The apartment was no longer part of his future. The plan he had followed for 15 years had ended. And yet, when Min sat down and looked around, he didn't feel empty. He felt calm, because somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, he had gained something more valuable than what he had lost. Not money, not a house, but something harder to build. Connection, family, a sense that his life had meaning beyond numbers. That night, for the first time in many years, Min didn't open his notebook. He didn't count anything. He simply sat quietly and allowed himself to rest. If this story made you pause for a moment, if it reminded you of someone you care about, then maybe tonight is a good time to reach out to them. Because sometimes the things we think we are saving for the future are actually meant to be given in the present.